Hello everyone, welcome to new blog. In this blog we are going to see how can we use Azure DevOps to migrate my server which is on-prem to the cloud, and everything is kept through Azure DevOps pipelines. Everything is already in place with respect to codes, all the requirements, everything. We just simulate the entire experience using Azure DevOps. I'm not doing more on how I have written the codes, what is the background code. We can separately connect and we can have those discussion, but we will just see the simulation, how it can be done. We can have a separate discussions around how we can use, because there is a multiple use cases. There can be hundreds of different requirements from different customer based on what kind of nature of their work is. But for now, let's see a very simple demo. I will try to explain what we are trying to do here. Let's start by understanding the infrastructure and what we are trying to do. So on-prem, we have already installed Azure Migrate and the discovery has been done. In the discovery, we find there is one web server and a database server. We try to access its portal and everything looks good. And this is the application which we are trying to migrate to our Azure. And during this migration, we have already set up our landing zone with required resource group and our network, which has a two subnet, which is a web and a DB. So whatever the server is here is gonna go to this particular subnets. We have installed also one server. Basically, that's a fresh new server only to get integrated to our Azure DevOps. So we have installed Azure DevOps hosted agent on that. We also installed Ansible, so that basically Ansible is going to talk using again Azure DevOps to integrate any pre-migration tasks to it. So how exactly this kickstart happens? Let me explain you that entire process. The first is a pre-migration. So in the pre-migration, first my database stops. The second is my web server stops. Post that, my replication will start, which is like my third process. And what happens is the time we execute my pipeline to start the replication, automatically my web server and database server will get added to Azure Migrate for replication. Fourth step is a test recovery. So there is a separate resource group in which it gets added and a separate VNet for test recovery. Then fifth will be my final cutover, where my VMs will be completely migrated to the cloud. And the final is the sixth, where the cleanup happens and my entire migration is a success. We are not doing any of the task other than the post migration as a manual. Again, post migration job was also eligible to be done or can be done for automation, but I have not done it, just to simulate how much I was able to do it in my time. And all this entire process was automated. Everything is put on Azure repositories. All the scripts, all the codes have been put on Azure repositories, and my Azure DevOps calls each and every pipelines and get executed. We are not touching anything except the post task. So without wasting much time, let's explore and see how can we access this website on the cloud. Let's continue with the demo. So I've written down all the steps what we are going to do as a pre-migration, migration and post-migration. So all the things which is highlighted on the red are the steps which we are going to do as a manual. Send replication health status we are not going to do. Again, that can be automated. The scripts are available. That is the possibilities. That's why I kept it for your information. But other than the red, we are going to execute everything using Azure DevOps. First thing first, we will access our web server. What we will put the IP address and press enter. Yeah. So once you see this is our web server, which is fetching the data from the database. It's just a raw data, which, or you can say sample data, which I have made for this particular use case. Now we are going to execute our pre-migration tasks. So we will go to our server. Okay, let me do one thing. This is my hosted agent, and let me show you on Azure portal how exactly my hosted agent looks like. We'll go to project settings, we'll go to agent pools, default agent pool, and we'll go to agents. We can see our server DC agent, which is offline. Let me make it online. Yeah, just run that and it will take a few seconds and we can say it is online. Now you can execute any of your pipelines from Azure DevOps to your agent pool. Let's go back to our repository. In the repository, we can see there are many already predefined repositories created. One is Ansible. Ansible is where all my scripts are. Then we have migration for the replication. We have for migration cutover for all the cutover. Migration complete is when it stopped the replication and do the final cutover. So all these things are already defined. We'll go to Ansible. Inside the Ansible, you can see we have three basic YAML. One YAML is to update the host. Another, basically it update what all the target hosts are there and it will going to execute. So next is to stop the IS and the database as well. So we are going to execute all three YAMLs from Azure DevOps pipeline. So let's click on release. And you can see there are many releases here. Either we can directly create a release or we can go and change the code and it get auto triggered based on the code change. It is completely upon our use case what we want to do. In now we are just going to create a custom release. Based on that release, we will do it. Okay, oh, I'm sorry, I was in a wrong one. We'll click on pre-release, pre-migration Ansible. We will drop down, select all the stages, what is going to get triggered. Again, we can see release 13 is created. We'll start the deployment, deploy multiple, select all the stages, what we need to select, click on deploy. So we can see everything is in queue. The first task is to update the host file. What it's going to do is it's going to trigger via my hosted agent and it's going to update my host file. Basically this carry the information that which are my target database servers and IS servers, and based on that next execution happens. So now next is a stop database. It is based on approval. I have put an approval so that basically an application owner go and approves, or a database admin approves that yes, everything looks good, please stop my database. It is completely your use case. You can request it or you can predefine it. In my case, I have kept as an approval process. It is basically going to trigger you an email, and in the email you can approve it. Okay, let me fill it for all the information. All looks good. Let's go ahead and stop the database. Let's click on approve. Again, it's gonna take not much time, but again it has to recreate all the agents and everything. Let's click refresh on the page. It's gonna take a while. By the time it stopped the database, let's wait for a few seconds. Yes, the execution has been done. Let's go back and again click on refresh. Previously our database was accessible. Now what is going to happen is our database won't be accessible, but the web page is going to throw me an error saying that yes, my web page is available, but your database is not available. Now we are going to stop even the web page. Let's click on approve. Yes, and again it's going to take few seconds. This time it is going to stop my web server and I am not going to get a response even from my web server. Completely your use case. How you're going to define all these steps, you can define by yourself. Let's wait for a few more seconds. Yes, looks like it is succeeded. Now again let's refresh and we will get that the site can't be reached. Even the web page is not accessible now. So now you can see all my tasks are done. With respect to this, let's click on make the pre-migration step as green. Click on home. Let me change the text to green. This is a success. Now the next stage is to start the replication. We'll again go back to pipelines, releases, and this is the test recovery. Let's click on, oh sorry, we need to click on add the server to the replication. This is the next task which we need to do. Click on edit. Now once we click on edit, we can see that we are just verifying the files. So this is what is executing. First is a copy of my all the data, and then Azure Powershell script executes. Going back, releases, add the server to the migration, yes, and you can execute by doing a text change, but like continuous deployment trigger, or by the manual trigger which we have done before. So this time we are going to change and we will execute it. So we'll do the change in the code, a small commit, and the time we click on commit, we'll go back again to the release. We can see the new stage has been triggered. Let's click on that. So it's preparing the agent, and this time it is not going on the hosted agent. It is directly going to talk to my Azure portal, and a direct PowerShell script is going to get executed. Yeah, we can see that entire script is executed, and let's click on refresh, and we can see now we have two servers, which is my web and database, which is under replication now. So the command is executed and it is in progress. This is going to take its sweet time for the entire replication to happen. It's just that the server is added to the replication. The entire data will be copied over the sweet period of time. Now let's even mark this as a green because we have started our replication. We'll wait for a while, and once the replication is 100% done, we will start our test recovery. Now let's go back, and now we can see that replication has been done. And we come back here checking like everything looks healthy, there is no configurational issues, and we have never performed a test recovery. The next job is to do a test recovery. We are going to do a test recovery using this release pipeline. Okay, again the text change will go to that particular repo. So we will go to our repo, which we can see we have a test recovery and there is a cleanup. So it is actually divided into two. So once we'll be doing a test recovery and another will be the cleanup. There are two separate tasks which we have created, and both of them are on click on the text change, which will happen. But the second step, which is a cleanup, is based on approval, which is what we are going to do. Let's enable continuous deployment trigger. Yeah, so the test recovery, the time we change the test recovery script, it was gonna update. Let's save it. Let me go back. Test recovery. Now we will go and update the script. Test recovery script. I'm just gonna do a minor change, 9, and it's gonna update my main branch. And once it is updated, we can see my release 14 is triggered, and it has to again go through the 2 stage, which is start of the recovery. So this test recovery will take quite a long time because it has to do a full trigger and recover the server. This time we are not going to recover it on my required resource group or a VNet. There is a dedicated resource group and a VNet which is going to happen. And it will start doing the test recovery for both of my servers. So we can see deployment is in progress. Go back, let's refresh. Now you can see, right, the test migration is in progress. Once we click, we can see the status that it has to go through all the 4 steps and preparing for the test migration, creating test virtual machines. All these steps will be taken care. It's going to take a little longer. I will, cut and come back. So now we can see even the second one has started. The first one is now test cleanup is pending. we can also come here and see my virtual machines. My one of the virtual machine is already recovered my migrated test VM. This is my first VM, which is my web server, which has been recovered. It's gonna take some while, and both of my servers will come after the test recovery. Let's click on the VM. When it is recovered, you can see that let's go to the network and have a quick review how what server has been recovered. We can review a higher level of details. Let's click on networking, and we can see that it is recovered on my virtual network, and the subnet is on a not my required one, but a test recovery one which I have created. It is an RG East US VNet, and under default this is my test recovery VNet. Computer name, okay, and everything looks good. So once everything looks good, let's go back to virtual machine, try to refresh, and we can see that there is something called temp. So this is in the recovery stage. This particular virtual machine is still not recovered. We need to wait for the entire recovery to happen, entire disk recovery to happen. Oh, it says as to disk because it's in a replication stage. Let's click on refresh. Yes, so my second VM is also up. We can now see our job is also completed. Let's see, both the VMs are also done. My job is also done. So basically my test recovery is completed. My entire tasks are done. Let's go back. My test recovery is done. We can request the app owner or required team to have a look to it. We can provide the access to them. They can have their own testing level up completely on your use case. What is your use case? You can have a look that where exactly it has been recovered to, and once the app owner say yes, everything looks good, you can do a cleanup. Again, it goes through an approval process. Everything looks good, yes, say everything is good, looks good, and click on approve. Let's click on approve. So once approve is clicked, it is going to execute again the backend PowerShell script, and it is going to clean up all the test recovery. So waiting for it to get executed completely. Let's come back and see, test cleanup is in progress. Now the other one, test cleanup, is in pending. Once we click refresh, we can see one of our VM is gone. And let's again click refresh. Test cleanup is pending, ready to migrate. You can see the test cleanup is pending for the other VM. Okay, and the first VM say pending. Okay, the first one says success. Now we will wait for other two success too. Other is success as well. So entire my code is succeeded. We can see that even the cleanup is done. Both of my activities are done. Now the next job is to do a migration cutover. So we will click on migration cutover. We are going to execute the last job. Let's click on edit. So we have only one task here. We will enable continuous deployment trigger. Let's close it, save it. Okay. Let's go back again on release, migration cutover, and we will edit the change in the text, make it as 3, commit, and we can see our cutover is getting executed now. Now what will happen is this is not a test recovery. It is going to recover in my required resource group, and it is going to use my required VNet as well in this. So as I told you in the beginning of the video, I explained that we have a separate VNet for database as well as for web server. It is going to recover to that particular one. It's going to take a while. Let's wait for it. Yeah, we can see the progress, and once we click on refresh, we can see the migration is in progress. um, since it's an actual cutover, it's gonna take a long time because it's gonna do all its delta sync and then perform. For meanwhile, let's click make this test recovery as success as a green, and we are in the stage of recovery and actual cutover, you can say. Once we click on this, we can see that what all stages it has to go through. It is a good number of them. Once entire steps are completed, we can see that my VM has come up on the target. And once we click on networking, we can also see that it is on a VNet database. So as we have defined that it is going to be on my VNet hello world and its particular subnet, which is for the database. We'll quickly go back and create one public IP, and we'll assign one public IP to this database server because we do not have any SSL VPN or any kind of a VPN connected so that we can access using a private IP. So we'll create one public IP with required information we are going to use as a basic SKU, and we will assign it to the database server. So once it has been started, deployment is complete. We are going to associate this public IP to the database server. Let's click on network interface, select the network interface. This is my migrated test VM. Let's click on this. We can also cross-validate. Let's go to virtual machine, my migrated virtual machine test VM, go on networking, and we can see my interface. And once everything looks good, click on OK. These all steps takes a while. I've just kept the video so that things go faster. Once the association is done, we can refresh, and we can use and we can try to ping this particular one. Yes, ping is working. We can also take an RDP, directly take an RDP to the system. Let's open our database and let me check. Everything looks good here. Yeah, everything looks good. Let me quickly open my SQL Management Studio. Let's connect to the SQL Management Studio to my local database. Let's expand the database. Once we expand, so I've created this table and database college, and the table is student details. Select 1000 rows. We can see yes, our data is intact. We got the required data. Now my second VM is also recovered and up. We will quickly go and check about this VM. If everything looks good, the VM is already in the required resource group hello world. We can see both the VMs are here, and we can also cross check our network component that it is in hello world under web. So this is my web server which is just got recovered, and this is the particular interface for it. Let's go back. We can see the entire migration is done. Everything looks good. Let's click on refresh, and we can see the cutover task is also completed. Now let's go back. Let's go back to all our releases. Since my cutover is done, it's time to stop the replication. So for that final stage, we'll go to complete migration. we can either enable is a continuous deployment, or we can do is a manual release. It's completely your choice. Since I have done all previous one is by the continuous deployment, let me do a custom release. I have clicked on create release, so release 2 has been created. Now we'll click on deploy, multiple deploy, we'll select that stage, click on deploy. So this is going to take a while. By that time we will come back and I will validate my service which has been recovered. Let this progress be there, and we can also, it's going to take a while, but the progress will happen. Now quickly let's take an RDP to my web server. What is my web server IP? My web server IP is this 10.1.1.4. Let's click on connect, administrator, type the password, let's connect to the system. So from my database server I'm able to connect to my web server. Looks good because I have my Visual Studio already installed. That's what it looks. Let me quickly create an IP address also for this. Create a public IP address. Again, we are going to use a basic queue because we want to access this web over an internet. So let's click on validate and create. So it's validating. Meanwhile, let's access this web server internally and check if it is accessible. Not over the port. Since I have not defined my target new private IP for the database, it's for sure gonna throw me an error because it does not know where exactly my database is. So my web page is trying to fetch the data, it's not happening. So let me quickly update also my configuration. We'll go to web.config. I need to update my database IP here. Yeah, you can see in the background that application is not reachable. My web server is not able to fetch the data. We'll quickly open it. Web.config. Yeah. Where is my data source? Where is my data source for my database? Let me look up. Yeah, okay. So here is my data source. Let me get my IP address for my database server quickly and put it here, which is 2.4. Looks good. Let's save it and do a refresh. You can see my database is now accessible, my web page is working. Now my next task is to integrate this particular server with a public IP, so that once we integrate with the public IP, we can access over internet as well. We'll go to web server, click on associate. You can look all the information, network interface. This is my interface. Click OK. It's gonna take a while and it will be accessible. Now we will copy this DNS name and paste it, enter, and we can see voila, now my database is accessible over internet as well. And we can also see my replication also is has been deleted. The final stage of cleanup is done, recovery is also done, my stop replication is also done. So what you have seen is that we have executed all these scripts, and all these scripts are done everything by Azure DevOps. We have not executed any of them or any of the tasks other than the post migration activity is manual. We just change it. If you're using DNS name, even you don't have to change it, you just have to update the DNS. You can add even the post migration task as in updating the DNS, and you don't have to do anything. So everything, entire task has been done using Azure DevOps. Thank you guys, thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.